Summoned through the dimension of sound, people explore the musical world which they believe to be true. But there is a world, unheard by some, that is filled with stories of an unknown reality, a jazz side. Episode 13 of Tales from the Jazz Side is with keyboardist, pianist, percussionist, composer, arranger, teacher, Charles Blenzig. Now, this is another very special show for me because I finally have a chance to present to you a superb composer, an imaginative arranger, an impressive keyboardist and piano player, a terrific human being, and a cherished friend. Now, I've said this before on past shows, and I'm going to say it again. I've always been an advocate that you never know who you're going to meet and where, and that the person who is standing right next to you could be a person that is instrumental in assisting you in changing the direction of your life. And such was the case with my guest today, and something even more fantastic is he still is a catalyst for growth in my life. Loyal and sincere, he has a one-of-a-kind personality and across-the-board talent and work ethic. He is one of the most adaptable people I've ever met, and over the years, I've seen him meet challenges head-on with focus, determination, and a sense of humor, and all the while still remaining the core of Charles, still remaining Charles. And those of you who know him, you know exactly what I'm talking about. There is only one Charles Blenzig. For me, he has been the perfect road mentor, although I have to say that you can't put the two of us together in an airport trying to find our departure gate because we'll never get there. But still, I learned so much with him about being on the road. Having access to his extensive musical knowledge and getting to experience firsthand his brilliant work as Michael Frank's music director for 25 years has given me a perspective on music that I never considered, and also opened doors around contemporary jazz, helping me understand how to merge together the various styles. There's so many things that I've learned from Charles, and just to say it sounds very hollow compared to the reality. And I'm really very grateful to know him and have met him. Working with him, all that I've gained, I will use for the rest of my life. And I've learned lessons around being a better band leader and preparing as a musician and as a band leader for musicians. Subtle details of arranging songs and how to handle being on the road, both physically and mentally, and being able to just be there and keep up and do my job. His affable and adaptive nature, his jovial disposition, that kind of disposition that keeps the band's spirits lifted when we have a ridiculous schedule of travel and performance. And although it can get really, really crazy on the road, he's taught me how to understand when to not sweat the small stuff. And that's a real important thing to understand when you're out there touring. He's just an incredible human being, and the love and respect that I have for this gentleman is matched only by his unique and beautiful spirit, his incredible sense of humor, which throughout the show you'll hear how we seem to get the giggles. I can't stop laughing when I'm around him, and of course his outstanding talent. There is only one Charles Blenzig, and I am honored to have him on the show today. My guest today on Tales from the Jazz Side is with keyboard, pianist, composer, arranger, teacher, Charles Blenzig. Hi, Charles.
Hi, Veronica. I'm so happy to be here today.
Finally, I'm able to pin you down. I got you here.
Yes, it did take a while, and I apologize for that.
No, you're always so busy. I mean,
that's true. I really am.
Now, I mentioned in the opening remarks about how we met, and because I do a thing in front of the show so that everybody knows what's going on.
Yeah.
And how we met and how instrumental you were in getting me the Michael Frank's gig.
That is true.
And I'm finding actually that a lot of the musicians that I've had on the show actually started out playing other instruments.
Yep.
Now, how did you get the Michael Franks gig?
You know, that is a great question, and if there was one point in my career that it made a real turn, was playing with Michael. I mean, I had done some really great gigs. I was playing with Gil Evans' orchestra. We had a steady gig every Monday night at a club called Sweet Basil, which is no longer in New York. You remember that from Sweet Basil. And there was 3 keyboard. Gil had passed away, and there was always 3 keyboards with that band, because Gil was very much into the electric sound, and he had, you know, done the greatest arrangements kind of in the history of jazz, and was hearing electric instruments in his ensemble. So I ended up, well, it's kind of a cute story too. A CD I was doing got to Miles Evans, who was running the band, who was Gil Evans' son, named after Miles Davis. And I came in and sat in one day, and he said, "Anytime you want, come and sit in."
Wow.
So I came every week for like ever. I mean, it was just so amazing, such an opportunity. And eventually, literally years it took, you know, that this would happen, maybe a year and a half or whatever. I found myself being the only keyboard player, because Gil Goldstein was on the road, and Delmar Brown, they were the other 2 keyboard players. And I can't say enough about Gil Goldstein. He's not only a master keyboardist, but he's a master arranger. And he studied with Gil. And so we were the 3 keyboard players in the band. I was so honored to be there and play third keyboard. Some nights I would just play a sound or so, you know, because I was playing my role as the third keyboard player. So I got to be good friends with Gil Goldstein. He was the main keyboard player. And he was on the road with Michael. And he had done some producing for Michael. And he was going to go on the road. So he couldn't do the gig.
Okay.
So he said, I gave Michael your name. You know, I was like, okay, cool, whatever. And he was like, send him a CD, and, you know, he would like to hear you.
Okay.
So I didn't even have to audition. He heard the CD and he hired me.
Wow.
And that was...
Wow.
And I guess that's the benefits to any young musicians out there, to getting your first product out.
Yeah, the body.
Many of us have to pay for some of it, and then maybe get the company, the record label will take it on. But if you don't have a product to let someone hear, they're never going to know, you know, what your sound is.
That's true, and they're not going to, like, you know, come out of their house and go down to the club and hear you.
No, those
Exactly.
Exactly.
Especially if it's a
and Michael
bunch of-
was, I think, at that time living in Florida.
Yeah.
So yeah, you know, I just sent him, like I said, my first CD, and really that was kind of the gateway to everything else, because that started me with Gil, and everything broke.
Wow, and that's been like, what, 25 years now you're doing this with Michael, right?
This is...
39.
It's been 57 years since I started. when I started, I was in high school. No, you know, because I got you on the gig in 93. I've been with him since 90. So yes, next year is my 25th year as musical director for Michael. And I've loved every...
Well, you're great at it. You
I love
made
doing
it
it.
so it made it so easy for us to play it. The arrangements are great.
Well, we're so happy to have you, because if I could just say this, back when when Michael said, I really want a backup singer, he said, I wanted to get a few sounds. So I got a really good R&B singer, I got a kind of a rock singer, and I got you, jazz singer. And I said, you know, I'm just going to give him all of them. I mean, everyone's highly recommended. They're the people I think are best. But there's 3 different styles.
Right.
And he fell in love with you. And he said, I want Veronica. I want the jazz sound.
Wow, that's great.
And
I'm grateful because, you know, I'm gonna do a show where I'm just gonna talk about how how much I've learned in doing the Michael Franks gig. But we've also done we've done an actual great project together, and I'm going to get back into that. But before I do that, I'm finding that a lot of musicians that I've had on the show actually started out playing other instruments.
Yeah.
Like in your case, it was the drums, right?
Yeah.
And
Well, actually, it was a little bit like my very first instrument was piano, but it was like typical kind of American, like, you should study piano.
okay.
It's very common to have upright pianos, spinet pianos, or whatever. But I actually really didn't like it at all because I had a teacher that was, this should go later. She was scary.
She's still alive.
Hell no. I guess we'll have to edit that, but I mean,
We're
now,
not editing
see, this
nothing.
is the way
This is improv.
this is the way
going as
things
it
come
is.
out. And of course I didn't plan it, and you know that. This teacher, she was like 90, and she had a shake in her hand, whatever it was like, and all her writing was like script with waves in it. And I was horrified. I just was like, I would like, if we would be in a ride or doing something with my father, I wouldn't tell him that it was supposed to be a lesson. I would just let it go. And I remember her name just came to me. It's so perfect. Miss Kerr. Kerr. She was a Kerr.
How old were you?
Oh, I was young. I'm probably 6 or 7.
Okay, so when you
I was
started
afraid.
scripting, did you script the same way?
That's very good. No, it was like the devil's handwriting. I was like, I'm going to stay away from
Miss Kerr.
Miss Kerr.
Well, bless her heart. Maybe she's
long gone.
All right.
Well,
you've had a very impressive career, and you've worked and recorded with Gado Barbieri, Larry Carell, Michael Brecker, Randy Brecker, Joe Locke, Eddie Gomez, Tonino Horta, Hiram Bullock, great. And you had mentioned earlier that you were a member of the Gil Goldstein Orchestra.
Gil Evans.
Gil Evans.
Gil Evans.
Okay, Gil Evans Orchestra. Oh, wow, that's right. Now, besides having played on over 100 CDs, mine included, which is The Art of Michael Franks. You did
so much fun.
You did some beautiful arrangements of the songs on that, and also we did one of your tunes on that.
That's right.
That was co-written by Michael. The lyrics were written by Michael, and you wrote the melody, Rendezvous in Rio. Where did that? How did that come out? I think, did you say you had several evolutions of that song before?
The first, on my second record, called Say What You Mean, I wrote this song, and it was kind of, I was definitely thinking Brazilian, I mean, absolutely. But its original name was Seyaho.
Seyaho.
Which was some really other stuff. Will Lee, the great bass player, has been on Letterman for, I don't know, his whole lifetime now, 30, 40 years, however long. Letterman's been in there. He did actually made up words. We made up words.
For that song?
Yes.
So what is it again?
Seyaho.
Seyaho.
And that's a made up word.
And probably in some language somewhere in the world.
It means, you know what?
Says something.
Like something you. Something like that. Yeah, I went to India and I played that, and like they put me in jail because it meant killer of kings.
Killer of cows.
Yeah. Oh, that's right.
That's like the worst thing you could possibly.
That's why there's no McDonald's in India.
No, but you didn't go to India. They didn't.
No.
They didn't put.
No, they didn't.
Over that. Wow, that's interesting, and that's on "Say What You Mean." That
Yes.
was like the first CD. Of yours?
Second, and man,
CD.
that was, I got to say, that was, at the time, was so exciting. It was around 93 or 4, and I was so honored to have just an all-star lineup. It was Dennis Chambers on drums, Michael Brecker on saxophone, Willie bass and production, Manolo, who you know very well, on percussion, and Mike Stern on guitar.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really
Wow.
so much fun to make.
Now, did you get a chance to? Did you select the lineup for what you wanted, or was
I might as well mention Neil. Will mention Neil Weiss, who started a label called Big World Music from live recordings of Jaco Pastorius.
Okay.
And he was one of the entourage of the Gil Evans thing too. Heard me with the band and said, I want you to do a record for me. Yeah, those were in the days when people actually
had the money
they
and they had the vision.
And they actually saw you playing and said, I want to do something for you.
That's right. Well,
that doesn't happen anymore.
Not at all. Not at all. Now, you wear many hats. Besides playing, you also teach,
yes,
right?
Yes.
And you also have a strong classical background as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
You played this gig in, I believe, we were on this gig with Michael. I think it was in Tennessee, and we played with the symphony orchestra.
Oh yes, Nashville.
Yeah, and your arrangements were just extraordinary. I mean, absolutely unbelievable. There was the symphony. Well, tell us a little bit about how you.
It's funny when we're talking about save the scary stuff for later. These things come out, and I did not think of this, but boy, was I afraid and scared. This was a major symphony orchestra that I was writing for, and I had never done that.
Oh, okay.
It was my first time. So, at moments when I was writing it and then the reality hit me in a few months, there'd be a conductor. I would break into a cold sweat in the basement. And Allison would come down and I was pouring, what's wrong? And I remember there was one time, and here's Gil Goldstein again, where I literally was in a cold sweat in the basement when I realized I don't know anything about bowing. Of course, bowing is the whole string section has to do it in unison, and the concertmaster, whatever. So I broke in. I was freaking out, and I called Gil. I was like, Gil, what do you know about bowing? You've done so many things. He goes, nothing. So I was like, okay, great. No, you send it to the concertmaster.
Right.
And the concertmaster puts in the bowing for the whole string section.
Well, what do you mean when you say he puts in the bowing for?
So in other words, the notes don't change, but how the phrases are bowed, and that's not in the original score.
Okay.
So he puts different bowing marks for staccato or legato and how long the phrase should be. Then that is put into the part, and then we got our master parts.
Interesting.
Which was, in the full manuscript, the real manuscript of orchestras and the conductor's score. And it was very intimidating. But you were on the gig, and I thought it was pretty good.
It was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. And thankfully, Miss Kerr wasn't the one that's doing this thing. But, when you think of...
You've learned from me.
I know. I do. I learn. I pay attention.
We've been together longer than Michael, so...
Exactly.
So since about 90, so about 25 years.
Absolutely. So, and when you talk about orchestration, and I think of the lack of venues that are around for jazz artists to actually put together pieces. You can conceptually, write something, but when you actually have venues that are there, where the money is there to be able to do these, and you have all the orchestra and the strings and the whole thing, and I just remembered that how amazing it was to hear all of that behind,
I'm so with you, and if for the audience, we were engulfed. Many jazz groups when they work with an orchestra, although they're in front, the strings kind of come up in a circle near you. The conductor's right in front, and you're right. Just the sound.
It was unbelievable. It was unbelievable, and of course, it was your arrangements that actually made that I think being with Michael for as long as you have, you really do understand the soul,
I do.
the true organic soul of his music.
I
So
do.
you bring a real truth to it.
Well, as
and-
we both know, he's just a phenomenal singer-songwriter,
Yeah.
which if he just did one, would be incredible. But people all over, are just taken by his lyrics, which
Yes.
are
Yes.
just if they were
Master
if they were
wordsmith.
by themselves, it's just pure poetry.
Yes.
But along with his songwriting skills and singing, and the amazing thing is, we both know this, he was not musically trained.
Right. That's
He
right.
just, listened, and one of his guys he loved was Ahmad Jamal, which you know about. And boy, it was. Yes, I think I do understand his music. And
Yeah, I mean, it's great, and you've actually are on quite a few of his CDs,
Yeah.
and you've done some arrangements.
I was
The
lucky that
Christmas one, right?
well, I produced the full Christmas record, which you were on, and Michael said to me once, I was so honored that he said that's my favorite CD I've ever done.
Oh, yeah.
As a conceptual
Yeah, it's
entire.
beautiful.
There might
It's
have been
beautiful.
tracks from whatever, but he says as one CD, as one whole, it's the favorite record. So I was like so honored because he's, I don't know, 30 records or
Yeah,
something way
yeah,
up there,
yeah.
20 from all his years on Warner Brothers. And
It has a different quality to it, a different stamp.
yeah.
And I love Michael's, recordings. I love people who've produced his records and everything, but it definitely has. I feel a real, true, raw jazz. It has that real jazz thing,
Yes.
traditional, straight ahead bebop kind of.
Well, we had
thing.
you on it. We had Billy Kilson. We had Alex Sipiagin. Jay played bass, I
Yes,
believe.
yeah.
So it was all really, kind of jazz guys. We had a fantastic guitarist from Brazil,
Oh,
Romero
yes.
Romero Lubamba, I think.
Yeah.
It's
And-
just amazing.
Now, did Cafe on that one, or was he on the Time Together?
I forget.
I
Maybe
was
he
just
played
thinking
a
of
little.
the Guica.
Let's not.
All right, I'm going to leave that one for Cafe.
Let's let that go.
Okay, so now, in addition to everything that I love about you, Charles,
And I love you too. And this one thing I am is when people are good to me, and as you know, I mean, friends are very important to me, and you've been a great friend over the years. Even though at times when I was maybe a little too energetic, you threw me out of your hotel.
Keep it real.
Throwing me out of your hotel room because I wouldn't shut up.
Right,
All right, it's 5 in the morning. Can you leave now?
Well, after gigs, you get so wired up,
It's
you know.
true.
And when we were younger, we used to go to jam sessions.
No
You know,
more.
now it's like 8:00. We're ready to go to bed.
Right after the gig, straight back. No meeting anyone. Back to the room. Turn on the TV and watch the dumbest stuff
The
ever.
lobby call's usually like a couple hours later.
So what?
But as I said before, of all the things, I love everything about you. But one of the things I love so much is your accent. I mean, it is pure New York.
It is.
And
As anyone know, I don't know I have it until I go somewhere.
well, like last month or a month before last, I had a blues harmonica player named David Barnes, and he was born and raised in New York too. So you two are like true New Yorkers. Now, do you feel it has given you more of an advantage as a player, as a musician, because there were so many jazz clubs here, more than, say, anywhere else in the world?
Yes, absolutely. When I was, and it's funny how eras pass because it's gone, which was, coming up in the 80s, and I think I joined Gil's band in like the late 80s or maybe 86 or something like that. You could go from club to club.
That's true.
And there were great groups in all of them, masters. And there used to be 2 clubs on University near Washington Square called Bradley's, and I think Knickerbocker is still there.
Yeah.
But they both featured duos, just drum and piano. And they had alternating sets. So literally I'd go, and I wasn't the only one. I mean, a lot of people would go from Bradley's, and this was in the days where literally I would milk a beer
Right.
for the entire set. And I would sit at the corner of the bar, which was literally 5 feet away from the piano,
Right.
or whatever. It was right at just enough room for the waitress to go by.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it made a huge advantage because it gave me the edge of really hearing anyone that I could either afford or
Right.
or we would do this too. And I just don't think this could be done anymore. The Village Vanguard has steps that go to the basement.
Right. Right.
And me and my two friends that would love to go to, we would just, after the waitress was gone, we'd go down and just sit on the steps
Wow.
and listen. Then she'd come kick us out.
Right.
We wait another 15 minutes, go back down.
And then sit on the steps.
But you could do
yeah.
that.
You certainly could.
It wasn't that weird.
Right. Well, you ran the Blue Note jam session
I
for
did.
what, 15 years?
Not quite, but quite some time. I might have had the record had they not, because some heavy guys did that. Ted Curson, and the names go on because they had a jam session from right in the beginning, but they terminated it.
Right. Well, I know.
After me, they said, forget it.
Right, because I know some of the stories you've told us just running that session. Now, first of all, I always feel like today, not everybody knows how to run a jam session, like in the real way. But what is it like when you run? Like, can you give somebody like a pointer on a good way to run a jam session? Because some of them are ran like.
Well, yeah. Well, first of all, I was getting really good guys to come out because it's like a very.
Yeah, they knew you and you played with them.
And it was
on the road.
it was a good place for them to get exposure, because the way they ran it, which was very cool, which was after the second show on a Friday or Saturday, the idea was to keep the audience, not get rid of them and turn it around with a whole new house,
Right.
but to keep them and play for them,
Right.
so that they would stay.
Yeah.
And some of the great young cats that are now pretty famous, like we ran into Terry on Gully. He's with Diane Reeves now.
Yeah.
And he actually, see, all these things come back. He actually got the gig because she played at the Blue Note, her regular show, and stayed
Wow.
and heard him.
Wow.
And Donald Edwards, who, of course, I'm naming like, Sean Conley and Jay Anderson. I'm naming just bass and drums because we were the house trio.
Right,
We had
right.
1,000 horns that would come and play.
Right.
And so, yes.
How
It's
many-
like you'd
how
be
many
playing a
choruses?
tune and it would be like you were in a nightmare.
Right.
You just like look up and the horn would change. You morphed into another person. And it is true. It would, the rhythm section works the hardest on a jam session.
Yeah, they do.
Because
and if
there's
you don't
people
have a
coming
bass
up.
player in the house, forget about it.
And we
You
know
play
Sean and Jay, who are just phenomenal bass players.
You play all.
Phenomenal. I can't say enough about both of them. Just, wonderful players that you've had a chance to play with both and recorded with both.
Yeah, man. And that's like I met them through you.
That's
you
true.
know, and I tell people, when you go to a jam session, first of all, you just never know who you're going to meet wherever you go. You just never know.
Right.
So a lot of times people will want to hierarchy things.
Right.
Oh, well, this is you need to do. It's not about what you need to do. It's to get out and to play, to listen to as many cats as possible, right?
Exactly.
And to be open to really playing and listening, because I think that when you're at I met Travis at a jam session.
Well,
And
the
so
thing I got to add with that is, I will never forget this. We were flying somewhere with Michael, and you had Travis's first recording, and you just said to me, "Do you know this cat? He's new. I think he's." kind of like.
Oh, right. Well, he was with
Isn't
Columbia.
that weird, though?
It was, and the thing that determined whether I liked his playing was ballads. That was Big Nick always told me, if you want to know if a cat can play,
That's true.
listen to him play a ballad. And
you can't fake it.
You can't play.
fake
Yeah,
the ballad.
it's just, you know.
It's like you're naked because
Right.
the tempo's slow and there's no like mixing up with 1,000 notes.
Right.
It's like you have to really play with your heart, and it's more difficult than people think. People think, oh, it's slow, so
Right.
it must be easier.
Yeah, singers think that all the time. That's why they're always calling the ballad.
Exactly.
And they don't realize that it's not, just because it's slow doesn't mean it's easy.
Exactly.
You know, so, but in any case, all right.
Okay, now we're actually going to get to
Now, what are you working on? Are you working on anything right now? Do you have a project that you're...
The thing that I am working on is actually, I'm working with my daughter, Julia, and we are working on some original tracks, and that's what I'm doing at this very moment.
Wow. And, you know, I'm going to have a show. I'm having a special edition show where I will have Julia Blenzig
Oh, that'd
on.
be so
Yes,
cool.
and we're going to talk about her Christmas album she did.
Great.
And what she's working on now. But
Great,
that's
cool.
going to be after you.
Cool,
So
cool.
we're not going to do that now.
Great.
But,
Great.
all right. So now, are you ready to walk down into the basement with me?
You know that I have been
Wait a
in
minute,
the
let me-
basement for a long time.
You have been, literally and figuratively.
Because my studio is in my basement at my house, and I have been known to spend
many hours.
multiple days and nights.
Okay, well, we're going to just stay there then.
Great.
And then I'm going to
Perfect.
ask these questions.
Great.
So are you ready?
Yes.
All right, now.
What is it?
One.
Okay.
Tell us about someone you've worked with who was a little frightening to you, but in a good way.
All right. So I played with a lot of people, but early, this guy was kind of scary, in a good way and in a bad way. And he's this guitarist, Joe Beck.
Okay.
And Joe Beck's claim to fame was playing on Miles Davis' Circle in the Round, and he was actually the first electric guitarist to play with Miles, the first.
Okay.
So Miles changed his sound from, the classic quintet sound to what he did till the end of his career, which was electric instruments,
Okay, so
electric
it was that
bass.
period of moving. Okay.
Late 60s.
All right.
But he was like known as a real tough guy, real mean guy. And if I could say stuff like this because he's passed on.
Oh, yeah, just like Miss Kerr. You can say whatever you want
Exactly.
about her.
They're dead. So he was an ex-junkie, and he had that real dark side
edge
to
and
him,
stuff, yeah.
He could be pretty cool, but... So I was really nervous. I'd never worked with him, and I was scared because this guy's, was supposed to be really mean. So we rehearsed at his house, and as it's going, I'm like, wow, this guy's pretty cool. I don't know. What is everybody...
Yeah, what is they talking about? Yeah.
Now, it was his gig,
Okay.
He hired us for his gig, so... And he liked the keyboard I brought, and we were rehearsing, and he said, that sound, I want that on the gig. I want that. And I was like, oh, man, this is great. I got sounds, and all nice. So the gig comes, right? And I'm real nervous playing, and it's going pretty good. We're not playing at our best, but we're accompanying him and all a little nervous because we hadn't played with him. And so we go into the tune that he wants that sound on, and I start playing it. He turns to me, don't ever play that sound again. I'm like, I didn't say anything out loud. I was saying, this is the sound that you wanted, you loved at rehearsal. So I'm vibed. I'm already like, when you're a young cat on the gig, like the vibe is broke.
Oh, right.
And anything could go. So I'm still playing all like sad now. I'm like, oh shit, I just forget it, man. So then I'm playing, I'm like, maybe I could redeem myself with
Right. So
some chops
Yeah,
and stuff.
yeah.
So we get playing, right? And I play this huge line from the top all the way down, very virtuoso. He turns to me and goes, you hit every one. And he was just like that, plus just being dark at any time.
Right. It just
He could be
switch it
cool,
on, yeah,
and it would
then
just
bang.
like go really dark.
So you made it through the gig.
No, we did make it through. We didn't.
Did you play with him again? Or
Not. We did.
Okay.
And it was the whole rhythm section. I forget who was in it, but we came as a group.
Okay.
The three of us were hired together, and we did do a few more things. But then he kind of moved on.
Wow.
But he had that real dark bebop, like you were saying, that bebop junkie side where they didn't play.
It
was
really did.
really serious, and like it was actually part of the thing to make young cats intimidated and be afraid, to
exactly.
put fear in you.
Yeah, to see just how much you can take, and if you're going to go through it, make it through anyway.
It's
You know, if
really
you're gonna
that,
deal
and
with
that you don't get much these days either, because probably good for good reasons.
Right. And we don't play with a lot of.
Well, that's
there's
right.
not,
There's
we don't have
not
a lot
that
of
much
opportunities
interaction
yet to.
with the older musicians. Now it's in school.
Yeah.
Where the older cats are teaching the young cats is actually, like back in the day, you would say like, oh, I played with Donald Byrd, and it was like going to school.
Right.
Well,
right.
now it's like you go to school. It's
right,
like
right.
playing with Donald Byrd.
Exactly, and you're in an environment though that you at least you're protected by the principal and the system of the school from.
I've
anything that's too dark.
only gone off on a few kids. Seriously, only a few of them. My 15 years of teaching at Purchase, and but when I did, the rest of the class had their mouths like wide open, like they couldn't believe it. This Mr. Nice Guy, because I have the other side like anyone.
Well, yeah.
That when someone provokes me, and if you're fooling with the music, it's bigger than all of us.
Right.
So if you fool around with that concept, like with guys that are serious, yeah, we take it personally.
Oh, I've seen you too. I've seen you keeping it real. So I'm. So okay.
All
so
right.
now, what is the scariest work in any medium, like say painting or photograph, book, movie, television show, radio? Some people mention dreams that you've encountered.
The scariest?
Yeah.
I mean, am I allowed to say a gig?
Yeah, you could. I mean,
What-
I was
what-
trying to go for
We
something.
could edit
other-
this later, but what?
Yeah,
what do you
no, I
mean
was
there?
thinking of like sometimes, like for me, I love scary books. I love scary movies. I love anything that has to do with horror and some people, like for instance, one of the guys on the show talked about dreams. He had this dreams that.
I got it. Got it.
So this is to show some scary stuff outside of just the music, because we all know music
That's
is
scary
always
enough.
terrifying. But to see if there's,
Something else.
yeah, like
Well, like all of us, dreams can be strange.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had a reoccurring dream ever since I've been a professional musician, which is you just can't get to the gig. You're in the hotel room. You got your clothes half on, and you're ready to walk out the door. Something happens.
Oh, yeah.
You lose a shoe, you get this. Then you try to get to the venue, and the cab driver goes the
Right.
wrong way.
So you have a recurring dream that's like that?
Yes, all the time. That like I wake up. I never made it to the gig. Some of them have been Michael Frank's gigs. And I wake up and I'm like, okay, I missed that.
Well, for me, it's always where, I practice. I got everything together. I know all the songs. And then they walk up to me right before I go out on stage. And this is the first time ever that it's my opportunity where it's featuring me. And the house is like 10,000 people. And I am so ready. And they walk to me right before I step on stage and give me all new music and say, you got to do all of this. I have that dream all the time.
That is good. Actually, as a professional musician, that has happened a few times to me. Not so much preparing, but here's a whole thing. Now and then, you'll do a gig where you're sub, and they really will. You never
They'll
saw
pull
the
it out,
music,
right, that's right.
and they pull it out. That's scary.
Oh my God! It's just kind
really
of what do
scary.
you do with that?
Exactly.
Your dream. This is interesting because everybody has very different types of dreams, and yours is getting to a gig. That's
Just like all the pressure, You know it's starting. You have to be, and everything goes wrong.
Oh.
Your pants rip, and, you know, you get there, and you can't get in the stage door.
Right. And you never get to the gig. I mean, you never get to do the
Never, ever. And I wake up all like
totally freaked out. And then you have to check because on the road, there's a tendency
go
to
ahead
kind
now,
of
that's right.
like not know where you are.
Well, that is true. When you do a lot of road time, and you're doing, you know, a few weeks in a row or whatever, you can forget.
You can like wake up. Where am I?
It's
What's
rhythm
going
marines, kid. But it is true.
Yeah.
You know, and we usually have to leave the bathroom light on to just know where it is.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the hotels are all kind of either built on the same sort of thing, but that's true. I do too. I leave the door, I close the door, and have it cracked. So
Exactly.
So, okay, here's the last question.
Okay.
All right. What is the scariest thing that ever happened to you while performing live?
All right. I'm gonna. Now, actually, while performing, or could it be slightly before? Actually, on the gig.
Well, actually, either
Right
one.
on the stage.
Yeah, you can throw
Right,
one
I'll
or the
throw a
other.
little
Like
of both.
you know.
You've been on some of these where the keyboard just kind of freaks out.
Oh, okay.
You know, as you know, we use keyboards on the road, and sometimes, like, well, one time in particular, I can remember is when the sustain pedal got caught, and I did this regular line in Michael's tune, and it all was like, and stayed. It locked into however many notes you could hit, 16. So I was like, got it down with one hand and yelled to the techs here, come on over it.
Right, it's almost like that organ in Phantom of the Opera. You know, it's just sustained right through.
So with keyboards, that does come at times where you have problems with the technical end of it.
Yeah,
you know,
and
during a performance, and it is a little scary because you know. You want things to sound good, and you know when it's the instrument's fault,
right,
you don't know if it could be fixed.
Right, exactly.
You know, and then sometimes before gigs, you've been on sound check. Mm-hmm. It's like this instrument is not good.
Right.
We need another. You know, go get us another.
Oh yeah. Yeah, those are like definitely when the mechanism that you're using that you need to actually to play.
Exactly.
Like a grand piano, for instance, at least it has its sound in that.
Exactly.
But when you have to deal with the
Electronics,
keyboard patches and things like that,
it could be an absolute nightmare.
or nothing coming out, or some other sound. Like,
but that's true.
When
you had to mention that. It's supposed to be strings and like, you know, Japanese flute comes on or something.
You know, and everybody on the bandstand just kind of look.
I remember actually playing in one. It was I forget who it was with, but playing in one of these halls that was very muddy in sound, so you couldn't make out
exactly what's being
exactly. So I'm playing strings, and I was like, "Wow, they're like a little powerful." Wow. So when the whole thing was over, I looked and it was horns. I was like, yeah, maybe that's...
You know, and we just go right there. Just go right
well, I mean, what are you going to do?
What are you going to do? It's
You're
over.
in the middle of a thing. It's over. And
it's
the sound must have been bad if I couldn't tell. Nobody could. Nobody looked at me weird. Nobody could hear anything.
Wow. Well,
well,
I wanted to... Is there something that you would like to, you know, give a little piece of your... insight to any young musicians that are starting out in, you know, either playing piano or being a musician or composer or orchestrator or whatever?
Well, I mean, being an educator too, I've thought a lot about these things because I've been teaching for a long time, 15 years at Purchase Conservatory, which is really one of the finest jazz conservatories in the country, which makes it one of the finest in the world. But in dealing with a lot of young musicians and other teachers, you kind of have to feel like you've had a calling to do this. because it takes so long to perfect it, and it has to be like so in you that you can't be yourself without it. You have to have that drive every day, because talent will only get you so far. There are very few people. There is, like, now and then, like a Chet Baker, who really does everything by ear. There's not a lot of guys like that. Maybe once in a generation. But for the rest of us, we have to know harmony, we have to know. So it's that everyday discipline that I still do when I have the time at home, when I'm not on the road. I practice every day. And, and I think that you never stop. But if you're serious, and I tell my students, you have to feel like you've had a calling. And that this is something that's a life's work, you know. And of course, you don't do it for the money. So think of it, in the arts, it's one of the few jobs that you're not seeking money. You're needing enough money to exist, but you're reaching for something that you can attain to, but it's not based on the money. If you're lucky, some comes with it.
Well, yeah, but it has to be that real, true love. Like, I can't live without you, love.
It's true. So, it's absolutely true, and all the great cats we know all say the same thing. Remember, I ran into Walter Davis a long time ago at this little bar. He was a great pianist that played with Dizzy for many years, and it was after the gig. He was like, "Yeah, you sound good. Do you practice every day?" I was like, "No, I gotta play every day, every day." And he says, "Only if it's, you only have a little time. If you could only get a half hour, or even 15 or 20 minutes on a day that you're busy." The thing is this everyday repetition of keeping your chops in shape, so that when the right call comes in, you're ready. It's not like, call comes in, now I've got to practice up. It's not like that.
Yeah, and when you really love something, I mean, like, someone used an example of falling in love. And, when you're in love with somebody, you want to see them every day.
That's true.
You want to know what they're doing. You want to be around them all the time.
Great
It's just all, and that's
Great
kind of how
point.
that is. So, you definitely have a hard love affair with it.
And you absolutely right. You have a relationship, but it's a relationship that if you put yourself into it, it always gives back.
Always, absolutely.
When you don't treat it right, it will curse you, because you may find yourself playing with someone and you don't sound good. And the thing with being a musician in New York is, or at least used to be, is you didn't know who could be in the audience.
At all.
Could be an off night.
Absolutely.
At a little club, and, Billy Hart was there for whatever reason. Or you could name so many people that could have just, Richie Byrack, who used to come by and hear me play a long, long time ago. And so if you weren't at your best, you could have just blown a chance at being referred to a gig, or getting a gig, right there from someone listening to you.
That's right. Like, not to dialing in. So, wow. Okay, so.
Yes.
I thank you so much.
Oh, it's been such a pleasure.
Has this been fun? It's not been hard, right?
It's been a pleasure, and of course, knowing you as long as we've known each other. And can I say one last thing about me and you?
Yeah, sure.
Very quickly. Veronica and I have been known to really laugh it up on the road, and there was a time where it was very early. We had many you know what I'm going to say. Many flights in a row, many. So we were all like punchy. It was another like 5 a.m. wake-up call. And I don't know what I did at security. It was something I did, and we were crying. It was not laughing. It was crying. Tears were coming down our faces as we got
and it's always at security points, at the security checkpoints. I was hoping that I would be able to get through this interview without laughing too hard. So
no,
I've been
pretty good.
I kept it in.
Yeah, as she's cracking up,
So,
No,
so
thank you.
anyway, you are so wonderful, and thank you so much for doing this. And we got to do this again.
Absolutely.
You know, when you're gonna come out with the new album.
Yes.
You know, or
Yeah.
the new album with Julia.
Yeah.
Or whatever. You know, it'd be really great.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, I love you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you
I
so
love
much.
you too.
Yeah. It's
And
great.
thanks for having me.
Okay, that wraps it up for us on Tales from the Jazz Side. The jazz side is always there, waiting for us to enter and waiting to enter us. So, until next time, unplug your ear holes, for you never know what worlds may be waiting for you.